Every police force in the UK should have a dedicated rural crime team. The call comes from the National Rural Crime Network, which comprises rural and farming groups and the charity Crime Stoppers. As we reported last month, the cost of rural crime went up by 22% last year. That's according to the insurers NFU Mutual. They put the cost of thefts and damage of things like tractors, GPS systems and power tools at nearly £50 million in 2022, up from £40 million in 2021. Well, Alistair Heath, who farms in Shropshire, was raided this summer.
A group of lads had broken into the farm office and taken every key for every vehicle, taken 3 of the tractors, dumped them in woods and taken a number of our power tools and what have you, and our GPS receivers as well. Everything was done very quietly. We looked at the speeds of the vehicles that they'd got. They're not in a rush. They are just doing everything methodically. They're so well organised.
Well, Stuart Russell farms in Lincolnshire. He's been targeted twice in 12 months with around £60,000 worth of equipment stolen.
It's frustrating, and we've had to spend money on putting laser beams across doors and alarming everything, and CCTV now, and it's just become part and parcel of living in rural countryside. The thought that somebody comes onto your property and has no regard for stuff that you've paid for and that belongs to somebody else is difficult to swallow, but we're getting used to it now.
Stuart Russell talking to us last month. Tim Passmore is the Police and Crime Commissioner for Suffolk and chair of the Rural Crime Network.
We have to do much more to prevent and solve crime in rural areas. So if we have that capability across all 43 forces, we really can make a difference to cutting and preventing rural crime.
How many forces have that capability then at the moment?
Well, I don't have a precise number, but I do know the majority do. I would suspect we've probably got somewhere around about 25. But even in what are regarded as the metropolitan areas, knowledge about rural crime needs to be extended across all forces.
Well, we do have a fairly new National Rural Crime Unit doing just that.
Well, it's early days, but we need to make sure that small unit under the guise of the National Police Chiefs Council has the proper links right across the whole country, and therefore it's really important that each force area has its own dedicated, focused, specialist rural crime team. We've got one here in Suffolk. We have 4 specialist officers who are there to train and educate the rest of the workforce. We also have a team of volunteers. We have a team of about 20 or so volunteers on horseback. They are people who find out soft intelligence and can hand it in liaising with the constabulary. And we also have a dedicated team of special constabulary volunteers who really focus on rural crime as well. That's the sort of thing we need right across the country.
That is a hard sell, though, isn't it, to forces, particularly where they're largely metropolitan, where resources are stretched and most crime will be in the metropolitan areas that they police.
That's certainly one point of view, but if we really are looking at breaking up organised crime groups, people need to remember that things like exploitation of forced labour, the sex trade, drugs, these happen in rural areas as well, and that's why we all need to work together. And we know that organised crime gets its tentacles into, for example, food chain crime. We saw that with the horse meat scandal a few years ago. It is essential that they understand the relevance of organised crime groups and rural crime in metropolitan areas. Rural crime matters and deserves just as much attention as other crimes.
And we have seen an increase in the value of rural crime and in some places in the amount of rural crime, particularly targeting high-value things like GPS systems on farm machinery. Is there more that manufacturers can do? Because it's very difficult to make a farm secure, isn't it?
Of course there's more that manufacturers can do. You've got immobilisers and so on high-value four-wheel drive vehicles. It ought to be a requirement to make sure that all plant and machinery, including agricultural machinery, does have this sort of security system added. It's not necessarily going to prevent crime, but we do know organised crime groups operate right across the world. I was down at Felixstowe Dock the other day with the National Vehicle Crime Intelligence Service, and I'm absolutely horrified at the number of expensive vehicles that are broken up and sold to criminal gangs. And sadly, this includes agricultural harvesting equipment and so on. So we've got to do a jolly sight more, and manufacturers must play their part in trying to make machines more secure.
Tim Passmore.